Welcome to This Week in Local, a Locology podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Locology analysts Mike Bolin and Charles Laughlin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Local. I'm Charles Laughlin, joined by my colleague Mike Bolin. Mike, how's it going?
Hey, Charlie. Going well.
So, Mike, tell us what you're working on this week.
Yeah, so we're looking at a new SMB advertising channel that just opened up. And when you hear me say that, you probably think, what is this sort of like stealth new thing? And it's not. It's actually something huge. It's Amazon. This was sort of brought up last week when Haibu formed a reseller deal with Amazon to sell its sponsored display ads to SMBs. And the reason this is new is that sponsored display ads on Amazon, which essentially are, as advertised, display ads that you see sort of throughout Amazon in search results on various pages, contextually matched to the page and the products being viewed, have traditionally only been available to Amazon sellers. It's sort of an upsell if you're on the network and you want to drive traffic to your Amazon sort of seller page or products, it's an option. Amazon has recently opened the floodgates to those beyond Amazon sellers. Haibu is one of the first companies to jump on this and be a reseller to its world of SMBs. So this sort of now joins Haibu's sort of product bundle of things it's reselling to SMBs. And the interesting thing here is that this starts to provoke various thoughts on like Amazon as an SMB channel. We've never really thought of it in that light, but it makes sense for a few reasons. One is user intent. We always look at places like Google, high user intent, search intent. Of course, people are indicating their need of what they want. Amazon as well. I mean, it's, people on Amazon are in shopping mode. That intent is high. And then number two, beyond intent, is the opportunity for contextual and some first-party behavioral targeting, but the contextual advertising is what I'll focus on, where, Amazon is a place that has become very popular for, home goods, for example. You're looking for things for your house or like a new pool vac. Oh, there's an ad also for pool cleaners in my area. So the contextual matching with a lot of SMB categories, whether it be home services or other things, it's a really sort of rich opportunity for some nice contextual matching there. And then so Haibu, I think, benefits from being able to add this to its sales bundle. Amazon benefits from continuing to grow its ad business. That's a clear sort of big tech diversification move we've talked about many times in the past. And Google continues to sort of challenge the duopoly of Google and Meta. And this is just another sort of tool to continue to ratchet up its ad business. So all around, a lot of interesting things happening there. We're continuing to look at it. But that's it for now.
So, Mike, one thing that just jumps out at me is Haibu, it's sort of in that, not really a Yellow Pages company, but clearly used to be one.
Used to be, yep.
Yeah. And what that says to me is that they're a company that has a customer base that's heavy on service-based businesses and not so heavy on retailers, brick and mortar. That's not as much. And
yeah,
Amazon, it seems, would be an opportunity for somebody who sells physical goods, less so, if not at all so, for somebody who's selling plumbing and electrical services or whatever. Talk about that a little. Is that relevant to this?
Yeah.
Does that get Haibu into a new lane, for example?
Yeah, it gets Amazon into a new lane too, because you said it. Amazon's existing, clients and customers and merchants and advertisers are all those that sell physical goods. This expands their addressable market into the home services world where they previously didn't have a lot of sort of sales reach. And I think, like you said, I think it also expands the lane for Haibu in terms of just more offerings to pass along to its, and the more things you have in that sales bundle, as the sort of stickier it can be, the broader appeal it can have to, now it can go to that pool cleaner and say, hey, we're already getting you Google, we have you on Yelp, we have you here and there. Would you like to add Amazon to the mix?
So I guess the follow-up question to that is, will people ever go to Amazon to look up, I need a pool cleaner in Dallas?
I don't know if that use case will be sort of conditioned or established anytime soon, but I
Yeah.
think that they will. Consumers will end up seeing relevant display ads for those companies where, like, Amazon's AI and ad matching and all that will sort of infer where those matches might happen. Like I said, if someone's looking for equipment that relates to the fact that they're probably doing a job and therefore might want quotes on a, local service
Right.
provider. Like, so they didn't go there to find it, but they may discover it.
So there may be a different way of thinking about how these habits are changed because of AI, pulling in these contextual recommendations, not just AI, but that ability. Maybe people are going to Amazon for one thing, and that habit will be formed through all these contextual recommendations. Like,
Oh, Amazon is the
I'm
king of
buying this, and then recommend the
yeah.
service that's associated
Amazon
with
is the original. You
it.
might also like,
Yeah, you like this book, you'll love that book. And it's
yeah,
just another
right.
way of thinking,
Yeah.
applying the same thinking. Okay,
Customers who
well,
bought this TV also bought this Blu-ray player. Would you like to,
yeah, of course. Okay,
yeah.
yeah. So we'll see. We'll see if that unfolds that way. Um, now, what do you think? I mean, if you could put this on a sort of a spectrum of big deals, just sort of interesting for a Haibu, for all the resellers that are kind of in the low-ecology ecosystem, is this is this an interesting path? Do you think more will follow this
Yeah.
path? Because I mean, Google was an obvious one. Google was both the thing that was taking away their customers, but also the thing that could deliver a lot of customers to them. And this one is less an obvious match, it seems like. But nonetheless, Amazon is becoming one of the biggest ad platforms in the
Yeah.
world, even though it's not a majority of its own business.
It's an option. They're going to want optionality. Like I said, Haibu was one of the first to jump on it, so I
Okay,
think others will follow.
we'll
And
see how that goes.
Amazon will be keen to strike other deals, assuming there's no
Yeah.
exclusivity in what they've done here with Haibu. I'm not sure about that.
Does this feel like small ball for Amazon? Because it kind of does to me, to be honest with you.
Small in that that's the S in
Small
SMB.
potatoes. Let's just
Yeah,
use
yeah, gotcha.
another old school metaphor. Yeah,
Well,
small
the
ball is one thing, small potatoes is another. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I meant small potatoes. Yeah,
So Amazon is not going to want to go after that market on its own because of the
mm-hmm.
fragmentation in the SMB space. But if they have a
Mm-hmm.
partner that is, versed in doing that or already has the advertisers and customers, it makes sense for them. I mean, to answer your question, is it small? How big is the SMB advertising market? How many SMBs
Massive.
are in the
Yeah, yeah,
US? It's that big. Of
yeah.
course, it's smaller budget per, but
Right.
that's the answer to your
Well,
question lies
yeah,
in the ad spend, the SMB ad spend.
yeah. There is a big pile that they can go take something
Yeah.
from. That's fair, and I don't think Amazon launches something like this without thinking this is just going to be a rounding error for us. Let's do it, And so
Well, it's low
my guess
commitment
is
for
they
them
probably,
too. It's low
yeah, yeah.
commitment. They're just providing the inventory. Haibu's doing the selling.
Well, it's like if you have anything to sell and you tell somebody, bring us a customer, we'll give you a cut of it. That's who says no to that opportunity. And I, it's more involved than that. I know, but anyway, okay. So let's shift gears a little. I've got something very different to talk about. I think on a recent episode, I dragged out the metaphor hobby horse, and then I'm a guy who has a few hobby horses I like to return to over and over again. This whole future of work is one of them, and I'm not going to say I've become friends with Vinny Lingham, but I got to know this guy Vinny Lingham. He's a kind of a quasi entrepreneurial celebrity. He's the this is he may not like this, nor will Mark Cuban, but I would sort of describe him as the Mark Cuban of South Africa. He's like one of the sharks on their Shark Tank. Started a whole bunch of companies, and just a nonstop entrepreneur. And he started this company called Waitroom. His background is more in deep tech and blockchain and things like that. Now he started this thing called Waitroom, which is in video conferencing, kind of going after Zoom, kind of right in that remote tech lane to cite the phrase that you coined, your neologism, if that's the right way to pronounce that. And this thing it originally started out as, you know, a video conferencing platform for business influencers to connect with followers. And the idea was you don't want to commit to a 30-minute meeting with some rando who wants your advice on his, uh, you know, go move back to my dog cookies example, on his dog cookie startup or whatever it is. So you do 5-minute things and you park them in a waiting room and they come on one after another. This is an interesting idea. I thought it was kind of small, to be honest with you. That rather quickly evolved into a relaunch as more of a direct, like video conferencing competitor to Zoom or whatever, and with a lot of AI features underlying it.
Mhm.
Now the company has renamed. So it launched, relaunched, kind of with a completely different. So it launched, pivoted. Now it's renaming itself to something called Rumi.ai. I don't even know what Rumi means. I haven't had a chance to ask Vinny what that actually means. He gave me a comment about why he's doing it, which made sense, which is we're more of an AI business now. The Waitroom concept is kind of gone. The name kind of no longer makes sense. I kind of accept that. I think that makes a certain amount of sense. So now it's basically, I hate to say it this way, but I'm going to. In Rumi.ai, which is David Shim's AI company, and what is now Rumi, are very much seem to me to be pretty much in the same lane. So we're seeing this sort of remote tech stack evolve rather quickly, in ways that may raise some questions about how robust this space is, given all that's going on with, the erosion of remote work, really, with all these big CEOs pushing people back into the office, on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, or whatever it is. Which reminds me of the joke that sounds like a kid's taekwondo schedule, but any rate, so we got this company, pivoting, relaunching, renaming, etc., and that raises obvious questions about, does this company, is it getting traction, and is this space really a space that's going to be there in a few years, given the evolution of remote work? Don't have all the answers there. Those are some of the harder questions you could ask about this. I don't know if you have any reaction, Mike.
Yeah. So, it sounds like a logical rebrand. The question is this tied to a meaningful functional pivot, or is it more of a branding rebrand?
I kind of feel like the functional pivot took place earlier this year, and that already happened. And now he would argue that they're adding on a lot more AI functionality. I mean, so just backing up quickly to explain what Rumi.ai is, which will probably make it easier to understand where kind of what used to be Waitroom is with the direction it's moving. Rumi.ai is basically an AI tool that basically measures the performance of a meeting and the performance of the people within the meeting using AI. So it basically creates a transcript. I use a tool called Otter to create instant transcripts for everything I record. And it makes my life a lot easier. And this takes that, but then adds some more analytical capabilities to it. So you can know who said what, who said how much on the meeting, who was leaning in, who was leaning back, those kinds of things.
Yep.
And then the obvious next step of that is, what are the action items? How do you take this meeting transcript and turn it into basically a data resource for sentiment analysis?
How do we change our meetings? How do we make them better?
How do we change how we do meetings? How do we understand better what our employees feel about what's going on in the company, where they're prioritizing their time, what's getting done and what's not getting done? All of these things are really important. And AI, through the sort of avenue of video conferencing, which is kind of how you used to say our business runs on email. Now you probably would, not saying our business, but most people's businesses, that kind of shifted to we run on whatever video, Teams or Zoom or whatever you use. That's how you communicate. And Slack, add Slack to that. But that sort of, real-time communication via video or text or whatever. But adding the AI layer to extract more understanding from those interactions is kind of where all this is going. And so what I'm seeing, I mean, maybe the parties would argue differently, but what I'm seeing is that what started out as a few different lanes within this remote stack are converging into a smaller number of lanes. And one of those lanes is sort of AI as a meeting, AI to meetings as a data resource and AI as the tool to extract the most value out of that data.
Yeah.
Meetings are
What I
data, the
s-
data comes from the transcript, et cetera. Yeah.
yeah, well, what I see happening here is that these are companies that are, looking for the type of publicity and presence in the sort of tech startup ecosystem that that is, sort of usually reserved for like end user facing things. But I think the strength here is more just sort of like deeper in the stack as an enabler. So it's almost like
Mhm.
what the evolutionary path that Foursquare went through. It was like the
Right.
startup darling of 2009 and 2010, and on
Yeah.
the cover of Fast Company magazine and all this.
Because
And
of the
then,
check-ins, you check into a nightclub and your friends are there.
yeah,
And
right,
yeah,
and it
yeah,
used to be consumer facing, in fairness. They
right, right.
realized after a while that their biggest strength was as just like a boring data provider in the background, and they're more successful than ever, even,
Yep.
without the sort of glitz. So, I'm not sure that that's a fair comparison, but we're talking a lot about these
there's
companies.
some nuggets in there, I think,
Yeah, like, I think they will be successful as, like, sort of, in the sort of plumbing and infrastructure, and they will be damn good companies along those lines. They won't be as sort of, like, sexy that we're always rolling them out and
Yeah.
talking about them as, like, sort of the representative of sexy trends in the tech world.
Well, I think you get right to it there because where this, like I said before, where this started was I'm a business influencer and I've got all these people who want a little bit of a little piece of me, a little piece of my time. I'm going to create a platform to make that happen efficiently.
Yeah.
That
My
was
my
kind of
point
like,
is, it
yeah,
doesn't need to be a platform. This should be part of Zoom. This should enable Zoom. It
right.
should
No,
be
no,
a
no. Well,
value-added.
Read.ai has taken that path.
Yeah, it
They're
has.
like
Yeah,
in
you're
the,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And, but anyway, the point is, it kind of started this thing that was glamour adjacent, let's just say, you
Yeah.
know, and then quickly realized that's probably not going anywhere. Let's move this into somewhere where there's a lot of activity that needs to be improved, and so they both saw the same opportunity. Reed and I think Vinny saw a different opportunity at first, pivoted into what is probably an opportunity if you can get embedded into either enough platforms like Zoom or get enough enterprise users who want to you know, change how their company does meetings and how the company extracts value from those meetings.
Yeah.
Those are a couple of different paths, and
And
I
I
don't
will
think they're
say, the counterpoint to the point I made earlier of, don't start your own platform, just be like, part of
yeah,
Zoom. There are downsides to that I want to acknowledge, which is that you are beholden and you are sort of at the whims of that platform, and your whole
yeah.
business can sink if they just,
Well, it's like
you
being in the
change.
Apple App Store
Yeah,
at a different
rather than
scale,
be,
obviously. But
more
yeah, yeah.
vertically integrated and just
Mhm.
sort of own your own platform. It is a tough thing
Right.
to do. You got to form your own network effect. You got to get end users, all that. It's
Right, and you
really,
got to sell way higher. You
yeah,
got
it's
to,
really just shooting the moon. But like,
yeah,
so there are high risk reward, become a platform type
yeah,
of plays, and obviously there is, just be an app or
yeah,
a layer, an enabling layer within someone else's platform.
yeah.
So I actually don't know that I can endorse either one for what
No,
Rumi's
no,
doing.
I'm not sure I can either. And
Yeah.
what I don't have a good answer to right now, because this is a fairly recent announcement, is are these two very different customer acquisition strategies with
Yep.
similar solutions, or are they closer together or further apart than I'm letting on right now? But what I am saying is that we're starting to see this kind of stack converge into more direct competitors. And I think
Hmm.
what emerged early on when we kind of identified this thing was a series of solutions trying to solve the same, addressing the same kind of space, like we're all working from home, et cetera, and we need a better tool set for this. That was kind of the macro challenge that Howard Lerman and David and others, now Vinny, have kind of entered, and but they're all kind of taking different lanes towards that. One is, Howard's really building a platform. These other
Yeah.
guys are building kind of a toolkit for
And Howard's very
yeah,
smart to position his company, not as like remote work, because as you
yeah,
said, that's contracting, but
yeah,
rather a distributed workforce, which is every Fortune 500, in the
sure,
world, which
sure,
has, an office in Singapore and London and LA. That's a distributed workforce.
yeah. And I would make one, I think, a fairly anodyne prediction out of this, which is that I think the notion of remote work as a sort of animating reason for all these things to exist will be swept under the rug. I don't think anyone's going to talk about remote work anymore in this ecosystem. I think that's already sort of happened. They're going to talk about distributed work. They're going to talk about the new way of working, all that stuff, which is true. And even in I've got to come back to the office Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All these tools are still being used, even when you're sitting in the office. So I think attacking it from that angle makes a whole lot more sense than saying, we're the OS for the new remote world of remote work, which is already kind of, as I've said and you agreed, are kind of not just going away, but
it's not the phrase itself has been stigmatized. You're not showing up with like investor pitch meetings leading with that.
No, it's not in any pitch decks. I guess is what I'm trying to say is if you're in the pitch deck for a new future of work startup, you're going to say distributed work or something like that. You're not going to say remote work.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Mike, we could go on and on about this, but let's not. Why don't you tell me or tell us who won the week?
Yeah. So a company got a big win this week, which is Tesla. Tesla, we often think of as a car company, but we know that that's really just sort of like the low margin or loss leader sort of tip of the spear for where Elon really wants to go, which is as an energy company and his sort of charging network. So in that respect, scored a few big wins on the heels of Toyota and Lexus. Toyota, of course, owning Lexus. Joining the sort of the supercharger standard, Tesla's North American charging port standard. What came after that this week was Subaru. So they landed Subaru, latest domino to fall. I think actually Toyota owns a small stake in Subaru, which may have pushed that forward. But anyway, latest domino to fall. This is all about network effect, and every sort of additional company that Tesla gains makes it more attractive for others because of the size of the network, plus the number of cars on the road. It's a classic network effect. So it's all about just gaining those sort of step function jumps to the network, which they did this week with Subaru. So they're my winner of the week.
My who in the week, I'll be very quick with. Company called Tabby. Again, this is me in my international scope of things. It's a company based in Saudi Arabia, was formerly based in Dubai, and it's a buy now, pay later company. Okay, fine. Enough about that. But they just raised $200 million, and I think it's just another signal that this thing, where we might think it's, I've made the point that it's commoditized and they need to, diversify and all this stuff, and it's still true. But in other parts of the world, this thing is still just getting rolling. And that part of the world, that sort of Saudi, UAE, Gulf countries part of the world, this buy now pay later is massively popular. Huh. And this company raised $200 million, now has a $1.5 billion valuation. We'll see if it can continue to grow that and where it goes next. But, pretty big deal, at least in that part of the world. So I thought I'd just acknowledge that. But that's, all I had with that. I just want to sort of acknowledge that there's companies out there that are still growing and still raising big amounts of money, because that business sucks up a lot of money, just tons of it. Anyway. Okay, Mike. And why don't you read us out?
Yeah. So thanks everyone for listening. This has been This Week in Local. Stay tuned every week for more episodes. You can find the show on all major podcast networks and find out more at locology.com. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Your engagement helps others find us. And if you're interested in being a guest or sponsor, you can email us at podcast@locology.com. So I'm Mike Boland with Charles Laughlin. Our producer is Dara Sweat. So thanks for listening and see you next week.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Locology's This Week in Local with Mike Boland and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.